Hey everyone, Jon Lenz here with another episode of our Green Velvet Chat series where we meet with business leaders from across industries to talk about news and events, trends and insights, and other important things exclusively. I'm here today with Cailin Rogers, who's the founder and managing principal of Alta Via, a communications and public relations firm that might have a few changes coming our way. Cailin, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, can you tell me and others about your intro, your background, how you got to where you are today?
Sure, yeah. So, like you said, I'm Cailin, and I manage a firm called Alta Via. Though we've just come through a merger and acquisition process of a legacy institution in Chicago. So we've combined the power and energy of a startup firm with the structure and influence of a 33-year-old company. So as we've come through that, we are just about ready to announce our new name, our new brand identity, and really get rocking and rolling.
Okay. What led you to this point?
Sure, I would say a series of happy circumstances of people being in the right places at the right time. So I never intended to go into public relations. I got my start in politics.
Sure.
And what I loved about politics, I found out, was actually just the people. I loved the power of possibility. I loved the power of team. I loved the power of working together, and I loved the power of language. That what we believe is so much based on what we say and how we tell stories and how we come together. So I found myself at a public relations firm with no public relations background and realized that there was a lot there that I didn't know, but that there was a lot there that I liked and I was interested in. I ended up getting picked up by a client and working in commercial real estate, helping to tell the stories of buildings, which sounds like it would be very boring. It isn't. It is so interesting when you understand the human impact on anything. And that's true in buildings and construction, just like it is in digital marketing, just like it is in insurance. Pick the most boring topic in the world. There are interesting people doing interesting things there.
Talk to me a little bit more about the firm currently, what your sweet spot is, and the areas you're most equipped to help.
Sure. I talk about us as a strategy firm. That is what we do. We do strategic communications. So instead of saying that we're in marketing or we're in social media or we're in public relations, we're agnostic to the tactics. You pick the tactics. Third, you start with the goal, then you build the strategy, then you pick the tactics. And where we really show up and where we do really good work is when people are trying to do something different. Are you trying to break the mold? Are you trying to think about it differently? Let us help.
Is there any experience-based feedback that you can apply from that framework to what you're working through, merging these two firms together?
Sure. Change management is hard. Transitions are hard. And so you have to build a bandwagon that everyone is invited onto, but that is going in a clear direction. You have to set the direction, you have to lead with vision, and you have to build in roles and ways for people to be helpful. People want to help, but they need to know how. So tell them.
Can you apply that to some of your client work as well, or some maybe loosely experience-based feedback from some of the clients that you support?
Yeah. So one of the campaigns that we really enjoyed, that we felt was tremendously groundbreaking, that made a difference, that had sort of that real impact, was the Revitalize Minnesota campaign work that we did. So again, taking an area that could be boring, the state historic tax credit in Minnesota could be boring.
Can we zoom in? I got goosebumps. Is there?
But seriously, the state historic tax credit in Minnesota, it allows developers, it allows communities, it allows nonprofits to save the buildings that make their history.
Brick by brick.
Yeah, but literally. And instead of tearing something down that takes away from the community ethos, that takes away from the community's history, that puts in something new that isn't necessary, and by the way, lots of carbon gets created in all of that. What you're doing when you put in a brand new building is you are buying a lot of things from elsewhere. When you're renovating a building, you're creating a lot of jobs right here, right in your community. Minnesota was letting that historic tax credit sunset. So our job was to tell everyone why that was a problem, to help people understand that these policies are actually really important, and while they sound boring, they have deep human impacts to the tune of 18,000 jobs in Minnesota. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. And so with our work with the Revitalize Minnesota Coalition, which included branding the coalition, which included framing up the communications and the talking points, it included working closely with the lobbying team to make sure that legislators understood the real human impact. And oh, by the way, it included wrangling the media to tell the story from every single angle across the state during legislative session for a few years in a row. What we were able to do is restore that state historic tax credit. It went away, we got it back.
Nice, Cailin. Cailin, we are so aligned. The way we think, the way our organizations operate around this emphasis on the human component. As you know, and we've discussed, Michelin Star Standards is a core value of our firm. So we've done a tremendous amount of work, and I think we're actually in the middle of a 6-week training curriculum currently to better understand how can we apply those established standards of excellence to the work that we do in the forms of human service, in the forms of technology smoothing out some of those customer interactions or streamlining the things that we do. How can leaders capitalize at the intersection of these two main trends?
I think you are spot on to focus on hospitality. I think that every leader should be thinking about it in that way, whether you're calling it hospitality or calling it customer experience, whatever you're calling it. The point is the same, as you have to focus on the user's experience. I think the best way to be able to do that, to have the space, the time, the energy to do it, is to really understand and implement the tools that exist. So you hear a lot of people say like, oh yeah, we use ChatGPT. Okay, have you trained it on your client's voice? Have you trained it on your voice? Are you using it to its fullest extent, or are you checking the box? Or are you not even there? You haven't even gotten to use ChatGPT because you're afraid. I think that it is incumbent upon leaders to have a vision of the future that is technology enabled, that is human focused. And so it means leaning into the ambiguity, it means exploring, and it means understanding. It means diving in.
I love that, and I'm also applying it to part of our POV when we work with clients. Is we have a marketing maturity model that assesses basically the sophistication or maturity of your marketing efforts against the business impact, which is it's a helpful model to kind of ground organizations and say like, hey, before you use the shiny object and the Chat GPT, like, hey, are your foundational, tech stack items aligned? Like, is your ERP functioning? Is your CRM accurate? Do you have clean first-party data? Do you have a unified content strategy and narrative to go to market? So kind of all these steps to get there. I really like how you've mentioned the vision of leaders to have a technology-enabled future.
And we can get there together, right? That's the whole thing here. So we can work together to build that future inside of our own companies, within our community, for our clients. These silos in the world don't exist anymore, because at the end of the day, we all walk with this every day, all the time. My home, my business are all on my phone, and that's true for everyone. And so let's lean in. Let's use the tools that we have to their fullest extent and capacity. Makes our lives easier. It makes them better. I
appreciated you getting distracted and legitimately checked your phone and then stayed in the talk track. We're good. So let's talk about some of these traits of leadership and some of the lessons that you've learned or the things that you've seen be most effective for the clients that you serve and support around leadership, managing through change and heading toward the future.
Some of the best advice that I got in becoming a leader was that you need to really know yourself. And at the time that I got that advice, I laughed and I said, of course I know myself. Why wouldn't I know myself? I'm in my body every day. I live my life every day, and I was dead wrong. I did not know myself. And when you're in a position as a leader, you're going to be stretched in a whole bunch of different directions. You're going to be asked to do a lot of things for a lot of people. And you have to know what your North Star is. You have to know what drives you. You have to know what gives you energy and joy and what takes it away. Because when you are not your best version of yourself, you are not as effective a leader as you can be. And you can't meet people where they're at if you can't meet people where they're at. And you can't do that without the energy and the belief to be there.
Yeah, it's this whole it's business, it's personal. Right. Like, well, your business is personal. Yes, and we need to take care and elevate and uplift our people so that they can deliver.
Humans are not cogs in a machine. Business was done for a very long time with people as the doers. And that means, especially in professional services, that you sort of commoditize humans. that you see them as replaceable. Here's the thing, no human is replaceable. Your brain is the investment that I am making when I bring you onto my team. But we're all humans. We all have things happen in our lives. We have days that are good and we have days that are bad. And if you are not at a spot that can meet you where you're at there and build the structure, the tools, the accountability, and I mean that in a very positive way, in a support system kind of way, for you as a human and as a thinker and strategist, if you don't have that, what are you doing?
With those tenets of leadership and effectiveness, Cailin, I'd be interested in your take. One of the things that we're seeing with our clients and business leaders is greater importance for cross-functional collaboration, not only at the leadership level, but even from a marketing standpoint. Like suddenly marketing needs to be working with sales. They need to be working with product. They need to be working with customer service or customer success. So talk to me about if you're seeing a similar trend, or your take on how business leaders can be working across the organizations or with different stakeholders, and if that's maybe changed in the last few years.
I think that is such a good point. The way that we think about
Go on.
The way that we think about that for ourselves is that for so long in marketing and in PR, in communications in general, the way you would measure your efficacy, the way you measure your results is through impressions.
Here's our clip
or
report.
Engagement rate. And that's great. But that doesn't actually make a business impact. If your goals are not aligned with the business impact, if you don't understand what's happening with sales, if you don't understand what's happening with research and development, if you don't understand where the company is going, it's going to make it really hard to do the best and most effective marketing and PR on behalf of it. So you have to intentionally pull apart the silos. And the way you do that is that three-part process that I just said that was taught to me. I did not come up with it. But goal, then strategy, then tactic, every single time. If you start with tactic and build strategy to get to the goal, you are not aligned with your client because they don't care how many impressions you got them if they don't sell a single product.
Isn't it humbling how we can enter into a situation or be tossed into a business issue and apply the simplest framework as the most difficult to implement or to unravel?
Yes.
Yeah.
We always want to start in the details. We always want to start with the tactics because it's what we're trained in, right? When you go to school for this, you have your first internship, you learn the tactics, you learn how to do. Very few places teach you how to think or let you practice the thinking.
Or I would also posit, in the current state of professional service firms or the current state of business, there is so much fundamental change happening that the way things have been done either isn't effective or is changing so much. I think that further supports your point, like, hey, can we slow down to speed up a little bit on this and think through where we're going and where we're headed and why?
Absolutely. The why is the most important part. Where are we going and why are we going there? The why is going to tell you everything else that you need to know in how to build the strategy, whether you're building a sales and business development strategy, whether you're building a marketing strategy. Any and all of those strategies, by the way, get matrixed together. None of those exist in silos.
Do you think in the last 5 years business leaders have become more or less effective, and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say it depends. I would say it depends on who you are and how you're leading. Are you embracing change? Are you embracing how the world is different? We are in a remarkable state of transition in the world. We came through COVID together as a globe. That upended home and work and everything that we knew.
The future of
was
work.
Changed completely, right? So it put a giant pause and then restart button on professional services, on business, on everything.
Yep.
The other thing that we're seeing right now, and that we've talked about a lot, is the absolute tremendous emergence of technology. We have so many options that they're almost impossible to even know which options are exactly right at which time, and they're changing all of the time. And then the third thing that's happening is a demographic shift. As the baby boomers are leaving the workforce, are transitioning out, we're seeing the opening up of a number of opportunities. There are gaps that need to be filled. Those three things together put us in the most remarkable state of change and transformation that any of us will see in our careers or our lifetime. It is the biggest opportunity and the biggest risk for business owners that has ever existed.
So bring us home and summarize some of your earlier points. With that in mind, we are absolutely at an inflection point a tipping point?
Yes.
How can we best equip leaders in our conversation today to embrace that uncertainty, that change, that innovation, and thrive?
Yeah, I think it comes back to a shared value that I know you and I both have, which is exploratory leadership. It comes back to embracing ambiguity. It comes back to understanding that you don't know everything. And it comes back to relationships. What's your community? Who are they? Who are you leaning on? Who are you asking for help? Who are you thinking things through with? You have to be thinking it through. You have to pull yourself out of the day-to-day and take some time to think, to plan, to strategize, and to lead. A truly effective leader has a vision and a path.
I think there is a balance, though. I'm a participatory leader, and I think I've learned there's a delicate balance with having the vision and conviction behind it, but also acknowledging what you don't know, what maybe isn't changed. We've had multiple conversations about that. Like, this is known and defined, but now we're in uncharted territory. So here's what we're going to try and why.
Yes.
But I think that goes to your earlier point of like enrolling other stakeholders, and good ideas can come from all over, and especially from the bottom up. Because sometimes when you're leading from the front, you can't see those blind spots.
Well, and a truly effective team is going to have even the leaders be good at following at times. You have to be a leader and a follower, to work collaboratively, to understand roles and responsibilities, to know the things that you're bad at, and to let other people do it. But that doesn't mean you're abdicating a vision, right? You're leading towards a vision. And you can lead with confidence and clarity even when you don't know. And it's okay to not know.
Yes.
Yes, but it's really hard, right? Like, so many leaders feel like they have to know everything all of the time, and I love to know everything all of the time.
We share that.
Yeah, it's really hard to not know, but opening up that level of vulnerability, and you do have to be careful with how you do it and who you do it in front of, but people want to work with people that they want to work with, whether they're an employee in a W-2 sense, or a client, or a vendor, or just a community participant. And being a full person, being a whole human who has blind spots, who has downsides, who has vulnerable areas, who has confusion at times, it's important that people see that.
I think that could also apply to voice of customer, to ways to shift and evolve your firm, the way you think, your service offerings with your clients, with your customers, and not go to one end of the spectrum and build in public, but also be very mindful of the stakeholders that are influencing your trajectory and aligning to that vision.
It's fundamentally about making empathy applicable. Take empathy as a value, as a thing that you do as a practice, and use it every single day. Build the systems and build the process to focus on empathy, to drive it through every aspect of your business.
Cailin, I have so enjoyed our time. I know you have some juicy things in store. First of all, where can people find you?
Yes. Find us currently at altaviaconsult.com. That will redirect you to our new brand name and new website here in a few weeks.
Soon.
And
anything else aside from a very big new brand launch and new go-to-market, anything else exciting that you're working on that our viewers should be aware of?
I would say that the thing that is most exciting to me right now is the work that's happening in downtown Minneapolis to bring it back, to revitalize, to restore, to create a Minneapolis renaissance. So I would say keep your eyes out for that, because there are some cool people doing some cool things, and we're excited to be involved with it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of our Green Velvet Chats. Stay tuned for more.